Hi guys, welcome back again. Welcome back to Porter's Network Room, and today, like I had promised in the previous video, we're actually going to look at the first part of VLANs. And VLANs is actually a virtual line. So a VLAN is a group of devices that are connected to one particular broadcast domain. So what I mean by a particular broadcast domain is simply because on a switched public network, you can actually create multiple smaller domains. So in this topology, if you can say we've got switch 1 and switch 2 and switch 4 here, and these switches, suppose we had a big network and we had multiple switches, that actually means that we have got one big broadcast domain. And having one big huge broadcast domain simply means that we're actually utilizing a lot of bandwidth, and it can be really be problematic. So you need to actually divide that broadcast into smaller pieces, and that's where subnetting actually becomes a little bit more handy, and subnetting actually comes more handy with VLANs. Okay, on this topology we actually have VLAN 10 and VLAN 20, and would want to demonstrate a few short commands and a few configuration commands on how we can actually configure a VLAN. So let's dig into it. Let's go to switch 2 here, and on switch 2 would want to create VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So you have to go to the global configuration terminal for you to actually create. And for you to create a VLAN, you're actually supposed to actually issue a command, the VLAN, and you issue the VLAN ID or the VLAN number. So we say VLAN 10. Naming a VLAN is is actually quite pretty handy, because it will be very necessary when you are troubleshooting your network. You want to know what VLAN 10 is or where it belongs to. So we can name these cells. So let's create VLAN 20, and we're going to name it engineering. We're going to use the shorthand of ENG. Okay, having done that, that simply means that we have created the VLANs. We can actually see the VLANs by using a show command. So I'm going to exit out of the global configuration mode, and I'm going to say show VLAN. And you can see here that we have got VLAN 10, which is the sales VLAN, and VLAN 20, which is actually the engineering VLAN. So in this topology, we've got two departments. We've got the sales department, we've got users on the engineering department. And the reason why we're creating a VLAN is because we don't want users in the sales department to really be causing noise to a very different department, like an engineering department. We would want them to communicate in their very own broadcast domain, and the engineering department communicating their very own broadcast domain. So having actually created the VLANs, you can actually see from the show command here to say that all the ports are in native VLAN 1. Why is that so? All the ports actually come in VLAN 1, and for you to actually take any port here to VLAN sales or VLAN engineering, you are supposed to configure that port to access that particular VLAN. And that's actually what we're going to do next. So we're going to actually go to global configuration mode, conft, and we're going to go to the interface FA. If you look at our topology here, we have FA on switch 2, we've got FA02 and FA010. So we're going to go to FA02, and FA02 is actually accessing the VLAN 10. Now let's talk about an access port. Switch port mode access. What are we doing here? We're telling the switch to say that this port is an access port. This port belongs to one VLAN, will only be able to carry data within that particular VLAN. So an access port is a port that belongs to one particular VLAN. It's different from a trunking port. And trunking port actually carries multiple VLANs at a particular line. So it can carry VLAN 10, VLAN 20, any VLAN between, of course, 2 to 4095 and 4094 rather. So well, let's go and tell this switch port to actually access VLAN 10. Having done that, then we can actually do a show VLAN command, and you can see to say that actually this port is now in the cells department, just like that. If you'd want to actually add more ports, let's say we add more ports and you'd want to have a handy way of doing so, we can actually go to, can use this interface, go to the global configuration mode. Let's say we'd want to add more PCs in VLAN 10, we can say interface range, and we can say a range of 03 all the way to 9. When you do that and we say these ports are access mode, my bad, and we tell these ports to access VLAN 10, you will be able to see that these ports are actually accessing moved to VLAN 10, and that can actually be pretty handy when you're dealing with a number of switches in a large enterprise network. Okay, so let's actually deal with VLAN 20. We've got a port in VLAN 20. If we go to interface FA010, this is an access port. So we're going to say switch port mode access, and this port is actually supposed to access VLAN 10, VLAN 20 rather. We can exit out of that and we can actually do a show VLAN, and we can say that yes, this VLAN is actually able to access VLAN 20. So having done that, I want to show you the other command, the show interface FS010. So when we use this switch port command, we're actually trying to get more information on that particular port. So when we issue this command, we're able to see that this port is enabled, and we're able to say that actually this port belongs to VLAN 20, and VLAN 20 is actually the engineering. It's able to tell you that. So this is when you're trying to actually get more information on a particular port, and can be quite handy when you're troubleshooting a network. Okay, good. I would also want to show you something. A show interface trunk command. We have nothing here simply because we don't have any port which is actually a trunk port. And I would want to emphasize to say that when you actually use a show VLAN command, it doesn't show you which ports are trunking. This command will only show you all the ports which are in access. Awesome. So since we don't have a trunk port, and from our topology we can see that we have interconnected two switches, switch 2 and switch 4, and they are connected on FA01. How are they going to communicate? So this port is supposed to actually, this link is supposed to be a trunk link. So we're actually going to go to that particular interface, going to call global configuration mode, of course, and interface FA01, and we're going to say switch port mode trunk. So now I need you to notice something here. You can see that the status has actually gone up. When we have set a port to be a trunking port, we have different types of trunks, all the way from 2 to 4094, and we have to tell this trunk to either access particular ports, or to access particular VLANs rather, or to access all the VLANs. In order for you to do that, we actually have to issue a switch interface trunk allowed command. Sorry, so it's a switch port trunk allowed, and we say VLAN. So you can say VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30, or you can just go for all VLANs. So having done that, that simply means that you have actually allowed all the VLANs to pass through this trunk port. One thing that we actually have to do now here next is to exit out of this interface, and we're actually going to show the interface FA01 we're going to use the switch port command. Sorry, my bad. We have to, we're in global configuration mode, so we have to use the do, and we can actually dig more into this interface, and we see that it's enabled. It's a trunk interface, and actually it's accessing a trunking native mode of VLAN 1 by default, and all the trunking VLANs enabled is O. You can see that. Awesome. What's next? I'd love to actually now show you the trunk command. So we said the show interface trunk. So the show interface trunk now has some data. When we actually issued this command up here, we had no data, as you can see. So now we've got some data. And the data that we have is actually that we have this port and it is on. Its mode is on. It's using the 802.1q encapsulation. It's in a trunking state, and it is having a native VLAN of 1. So now we are able to actually know that this is actually a trunk port. Some more information. The ports allowed on this trunk is O. That simply means from 1 to 1005. For us to go above 1005, we're supposed to enable the BTP protocol on this switch for us to actually go as high above this. And we're able to see to say that the VLANs allowed is the native VLAN 1, the VLAN 20, and the VLAN 10. Awesome. So, having configured this, you can now assume to say that PC1 is able to actually, which is belonging to VLAN 10, is able to ping PC3 on the other end. Let's try and find out if that is actually possible. Okay. Okay, so for us to actually get the IP, we're going to go to PC3. Okay, let's go, and this is our IP. So we're going to go to PC1 before it was actually pinging, before all those configurations, and we're going to issue a ping command. Let's see. So it has failed. Can you guess why? Okay, the reason why actually this ping has failed, or the reason why PC1 has failed to communicate to this PC, is because we have made all these configurations on this switch, but we have actually not touched this other switch. We have not actually configured anything on the neighboring switch. So for us to do so, we have to go to this switch, and we can see to say that this is a trunk. We enabled the trunk here, but we didn't enable the trunking here. Okay, so let's first start by enabling trunking. Let's see if we'll be able to get somewhere. So let's go to the interface FA 0/1, and the switch port mode is trunk, and switch port trunk allowed. It's VLAN O. Can exit out of the interface, out of this interface. We can actually do a show interface FA 0/1 switch port, and we can see to say that the trunking has been enabled and it's actually accessing all the VLANs. Awesome. Okay, since we have actually opened up traffic here, we can assume to say that now we're able to actually ping the other neighboring PC. Let's see if this is true. If you guess that it's true, then my apologies, actually, it's not true. The fact that we actually enable the other port to be a trunking port doesn't necessarily mean that actually this PC is now going to communicate. This is the reason being. When you go to this switch and issue a do show VLAN, you'll be able to see that we don't have any VLANs. We do have PC port FA02, which is connected to PC3, and it is still not communicating. The reason why is because we had said to say that a VLAN is a group of devices in a broadcast particular broadcast domain or a partition broadcast domain. So we can actually see to say that this port is in the default VLAN 1, and for that reason that it actually cannot communicate to a port which is in a VLAN 10. So in order to resolve that, we're supposed to create the VLAN. So let's go to global configuration mode, conf d, we set VLAN 10, and we can actually go to the interface. My bad, we can name it cells, name it cells there, exit out of this interface, go to the interface FA0/2, switch port, it's an access port, switch port, access, VLAN 10. Save your configurations by do wr do show VLAN, and we can see to say that we have actually moved this port to the cells and the VLAN has been created. So now let's try and access. Okay, so let's try and ping again. And there we go. We're able to reach PC3 from PC1, which are currently in the same VLANs. So well, that is all for this video, folks. We're going to actually learn the route on the stick and layer 3 VLAN routing in the next video. Till then, you have a good one.